Welcome to the Start Strong, Finish Strong podcast with Greg Weiss. In this episode, I sat down with Lynnaire Johnson from Word Wizard, New Zealand's #1 LinkedIn expert. We discussed the latest changes to LinkedIn and how these changes can be used to their advantage by job seekers and business owners alike. Let's get into it. Hey there, I'm Greg Weiss, and I'm delighted today to be bringing you a guest that I've had on the podcast and our program previously, and that's Lynnaire Johnson. And Lynnaire is known as New Zealand's most experienced and insightful LinkedIn expert. Nice to have you, Lynnaire.
Thanks, Greg. It's lovely to be back again. I always enjoy our conversations. Thanks so much.
I'm here actually, and you are the most amazing expert. I can see in the background there, you've got your books there, and we'll go through, no doubt, some of your expertise that's in that book and then some updates as well. So looking forward to today's session, which is going to be interactive, and we've got a number of questions from people as well. So Lynnaire, I'm really delighted to be here with you, as I've said many a time. And you know, LinkedIn seems to have changed a fair bit, and it amazes me that you've chosen to write a book about that, because it's a challenge in itself that it updates so much. I'm curious if we get down to the first piece, and that is, there are changes all the time. What are the trends that you're seeing within LinkedIn?
There are many changes this year, Greg. In fact, almost every morning I wake up to find something is different. And you can imagine how much hard work that is, trying to keep up with that, first of all, and then trying to make sure that I tell other people in ways that they can make use of that information. So that means it's challenging, but it's also great, because it means that we can all use LinkedIn in better ways to promote ourselves, to establish a really good personal brand, and to market ourselves, our businesses, and if we're employees, to be able to showcase our skills for when we want to move jobs or change careers. So, Greg, these are the top 5 new features that we've seen on LinkedIn in 2021. There've been more, but these are the ones that I think that are most important, and they make the biggest difference to our LinkedIn profiles and to our marketing. So the first of these is Content Creator, which is an amalgamation of different features all put into one. So the first thing that it does is that it changes your connect button to follow. So connect is where you have a one-to-one connection with someone, and a follower is somebody who follows you but is not connected to you. So there's a bit of a difference, and most of us usually follow people that we are not necessarily connected to. So that's one thing to remember about this whole content creator section, is that it does do that. It changes the order of your profile. So the featured section is shown at the quite high up. It changes to the activity section, and you'll notice that it displays your number of followers, which may or may not be a good thing. So you either have content creator on for all of those things, or you have it off.
If I can hop in there, and does that then mean, so there's a difference between following and connecting?
Yes.
Connecting means I can connect with you, first degree. Mm-hmm. Following doesn't mean that I'm actually a first degree connection with somebody. Is that the case?
That's right. And it's actually a matter of mutual agreement, really, Greg. Somebody invites you to connect, and you can either say yes or no. If you say yes, then you connect. If you say no, they can still follow you, but they are not connected to you. So it depends whether you want to be connected with people to develop relationships with them, or whether you just want to follow people or have people follow you. For me, I like to be connected to people. I like to develop relationships. I like to share my information with people. So it's much more valuable to me to have people connect with me. But by having this turned on, it's more difficult for people to connect with you. They have to go through several more steps in order to do that. And the other thing I don't like about it is it makes it look like you don't want to connect with people. Well, I do want to connect with people. And I think it's important to be able to somehow tell people that that's what you like.
So just because I deal a lot with people who are in transition in careers, I'm just wondering, what's the, should people who are transitioning, who want to reach out to people, should they have their follow button on, or should they actually have their connect button on?
I think it should be connect. Because the other advantage for people who want to transition into different jobs is that their about section will show higher up in their profile. And that's the most important aspect of their profile for people who are in that position, in my view. And it's designed really, Greg, for people who are publishing content. That's its purpose. So I don't think for the people that are in those sorts of situations you're talking about, that it's advisable to have it turned on, no.
Okay. That's a good distinction. Okay, what about cover story video? That looks interesting.
It is interesting. This hasn't had as much uptake as I would have liked. And I think it will change next year so that everybody will have a cover video. It'll be the same as everybody has a profile photo. That's what will be expected. So it can be up to 30 seconds long. And it's a great way to be able to show people how you come across on camera, which is a great soft skill to have if you are pivoting jobs or moving into a new role. So it gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself, say who you are, what you do, how you can help people, or your skills, and invite people to connect with you. It plays for 3 seconds automatically when you visit someone's profile with that there. So it's something I think we'll see a lot more of this coming year. Have you got one? I think you do, don't you?
I don't have a cover story video, and I'm thinking what you could do is you could show us where that actually is after
Oh,
these
of course I
points,
can. Absolutely.
or right now.
So this is my my profile here, and it sits in behind. You can see that there's an orange band around the left side, and so that is where the cover video sits. Because this is my profile, I will show you how it looks when this comes up.
Oh, how good is that?
What you can see, it's in portrait mode, and I've added captions at the bottom. So that makes it easy for people who can't hear what you, or don't have headphones, whatever, to what you're saying, to actually be able to read what you're saying. So
and currently does LinkedIn provide those closed captions at the bottom, or do you actually have to have that?
No, I use rev.com, which is a paid service, but it's very easy to use, and it's cheap as chips, just a few dollars.
But let's go back. Oh, look at that. Isn't that brilliant how it actually changes to now
just 3 seconds, but it plays on mute, Greg, so you don't blast people. But that first 3 seconds does play when somebody visits your profile immediately. Yes.
Fantastic. I think it's going to be a very good thing for candidates, or frankly anybody building their personal brand, to have a cover story video, and I'm sure it'll help rank within LinkedIn even more so. What about 5-star reviews?
This is my absolute favorite of the new features of this year, because I can't see any downsides to it at all. It sits in the providing services section of your profile. And what that does, it allows you to invite clients to give you a 1 to 5-star review. So it's like Instagram or Facebook reviews. This is LinkedIn's version of it. So it sits in the providing services section here, which is in the introduction section of your profile. And when you set this up, what it does allow you to do is allows you to have a short about section, list a number of your services, and then to have your 5-star reviews. Now, you can only have 20 at the moment. You can only invite 20 people to review you, but they can write some text and they can give you 1 to 5 stars. Well, you only want people to give you 5 stars, of course. So it's very easy to use. You just ask people, you go to somebody's, you go to the requests area here, and you just ask people if they would be happy to write you a review. Now, the problem, as I said at the moment, Greg, is that people don't yet know about this particular area, and so that they don't know how it works or how useful it is. But social proof, as you'll know, is exceedingly important. And I think that having reviews from a number of different people, clients obviously, is a really good thing to be able to showcase on your profile right at the top. Now, the thing that people often ask me is, how does it differ from recommendations? Well, recommendations sit right at the very bottom of your profile. And so the question is, do people really get this far? on a profile. And my considered opinion is sometimes, really, I'll sit on the fence on this. Yes, sometimes people will get as far as that, but I don't think that they always do know.
Okay, well, I know that when I recommend to transitioning employees about the importance of recommendations, I say recommendations stay there forever. They are like the new version of references.
Yes.
Once given, they're there forever. And I do know from experience and also from what I've been told, and that is that the LinkedIn algorithm certainly values or prioritizes people who have a LinkedIn profile with recommendations than without. So whether they are seen or otherwise, it helps to certainly rise. One,
Yes.
in terms of the algorithm when recruiters are looking for people. But the second thing happens to actually be, I think it's important, regardless of where they're embedded within the profile, that they're done, and you get a number of them. I certainly recommend to people that when they are transitioning and they're filling out in their careers, they're transitioning, and that is that when they're filling out their experience, that they ask several people in order to be able to actually get 2 or 3 recommendations for each of their most recent jobs.
I think that's an excellent idea. The other thing I like about them, Greg, is that they're honest, they're genuine. You can't fudge this because people who are writing those recommendations or those reviews have got their photos up on there, their headlines.
Yes.
So it's a good advertisement for them too, of course, but it just means that it's genuine and it's honest, because they've all seen testimonials that, could say anything about anybody with no way of being able to go back to the person and say, well, was this really true? Did you really find this? Or to be able to follow up in some way. So I like that aspect of these two, I must say. I think that that's another reason why they are recommendations and reviews are a particularly good thing to have.
Yeah.
Newsletters.
What is that?
This has only just arrived, or is arriving would be a better way to describe that, in actual fact. So we're recording this in mid-ish November, and newsletters have been started to roll out in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So some people have them now and some people don't. I don't yet have access to this, but this is a way of being able to get subscribers to a newsletter that you send out via LinkedIn. It goes via email to people who sign up for it. When you first send out a newsletter, it goes to every single one of your connections and they get an invite to subscribe or not. And you may have found, as I have in the last couple of weeks, that your inbox is swamped with people sending invites to newsletters. So I think they're going to be a great idea for people, but I'm not quite certain that doing it right at the moment, when there's a huge number of people doing it, is a very good idea. I just think that they'll just get lost.
So is this LinkedIn's attempt to be like a Mailchimp or a constant contact type situation?
Yes, but without those advantages, because because I haven't got the feature, I'm not yet entirely certain how it works, but I would imagine that you can't download your subscriber list, for example. That would be my bet. So most of that kind of information, or their email addresses as a file, in any way, because you can't download email addresses when you download your connections, for example. But I think that it's going to be useful for people who want to be able to do this within LinkedIn. I also think it's going to be very hard to build a good subscriber base. It's going to be very difficult because of the competition.
I'm just thinking also about some of the advantages. We're talking about LinkedIn, but some of the advantages, say, that more advanced email systems have, like, for example, Mailchimp is the most high-profile one, and that is that you can segment your database according to your audience. So there may be HR directors, for example, CEOs, and people who are going through job transitioning. I'm talking about my world, and they have different messages. I'm really wondering, and I guess it's too early to tell, but it'll be interesting to know whether LinkedIn is actually going to be able to allow you to segment, as opposed to it just being one broad audience newsletter.
I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised. And so if you are already doing a newsletter in Mailchimp and have a list, then I would not be changing it to this at all. I might be copying the newsletter and putting it into this because it will display on your profile, I'm assuming under the articles section, because that's where you write them. And they will have more functionality than posts, so with headlines and images and links, but and they will have the longevity that you get with articles as opposed to posts. So I think that the jury's going to be out of it on this one, Greg. They are coming to company pages. There's no indication of when that will be yet, but I think that might have more legs for people like you and I to be able to put out a newsletter from the company rather than from ourselves individually. Now, I haven't really given this a lot of thought, but I'm not certain that for people who are employees or team members that this will have a great deal of use, unless they are developing thought leadership perhaps, or they're moving into that area of they're developing their reputation for having expertise in their particular industry. So that might be one of those features that is a bit, nah. And we don't have to use them all. There's no law that says use everything that LinkedIn offers you. I think that we have to be judicious, choose the ones that are going to be the most useful for us, and then discard the rest.
And you were mentioning company pages. That was the last point. Is there something further you want to talk to that about?
I will just briefly, because I'm not entirely certain that it is useful necessarily for your audience who are not business owners, but company pages are definitely becoming more important to companies. So as a team member, following your company is going to become important because LinkedIn is adding features like almost like an intranet where team members can talk to each other and can post material for each other and can see what other people are posting on LinkedIn. So there are going to be opportunities, I think, more for developing a community within the company, in the company pages section of LinkedIn. So that will be more where I think team members are going to find it useful. There are a lot of changes for companies, and I think we're going to see more of that happening next year. And I really believe in this so strongly as being the next goldmine for businesses on LinkedIn, that next week I'm co-publishing a book with Michelle Raymond about LinkedIn company pages. So we're first off the mark with this one because up till now people have really discarded company pages. I've just seen it as a logo on their profile, but they are going to become ever more important to LinkedIn because it's a source of revenue for them. And I think they will become more important for us, either as business owners, as employees, to be able to use in much more creative ways, because you can then start, if you work for a big company, for example, you can use that section to be seen by other areas or members of the company, other team members, team leaders. So if you're looking to move up a bit across in the company, different roles within the company, then that would be a good system to be able to use. I think that one's got legs for employees using it in creative ways. Definitely.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now we've actually, they're interesting trends that LinkedIn has. I must say that if I think about LinkedIn in its foundational pieces, that it's still almost like the 80-20 rule, where you got to get 80% of the benefit focusing on 20% of the things to do, like, for example, your photo, your cover letter, your experience, your summary, and so on and so forth. And there's some words that they change every now and again. It always amazes me with all these platforms too, that just when you know that the button for something is here, it moves to there. It's like, for example, people redesigning a car and deciding to put the accelerator on the ceiling at times, and then they realize after a week or two, well, that really wasn't a smart idea, and we'll put it back down to the pedals for the feet, etc. So sometimes it's quite frustrating trying to actually keep up with things. But having said that, some very, very interesting trends. We did get a couple of questions that I'd like to be able to actually burrow down into with you, because as the expert on LinkedIn and being together, we can really address these. And that is that I've had a question from people that have things changed now? Let me ask you in the context of change. Have things changed where the most important areas for keywording is. So keywords are foundational
Yes.
for people being found for the skills and experience and so on and so forth that they've got. I'm curious, Linnea, what's your view on keywords, and do they remain in the same sections or otherwise?
Sure. I think the main place to have your keywords is in your headline, because that's definitely what the algorithm is going to pick up on, and that is definitely important. Your about section is the second place they're going to look for keywords, but I'm going to go back to just my profile again and show you one other place where LinkedIn has just recently decided that it is going to include keywords in searches, and that is back in this providing services section. And these keywords that you put in here, which are the services that you provide, are also now being picked up by the algorithm. Now, that's a very recent change. The problem with this, Greg, is that you cannot make these up. You cannot write your own skills. You have to choose from the very narrow, unfortunately, list that LinkedIn provides. But there are a good number that you can choose from if you are in certain professions or in certain areas that you that kind of fit with services rather than products. So I would suggest that people have a good look at the services provided section, set this up on their profile if they possibly can, if it works for them, because it just sits in here and is relatively easy to do. And that, I think, is going to be the third area that will become important over the next little while. People are talking about, and I'm not certain whether this will work or not, that the words that we put in banners at the top of our profile might become searchable. Now, whether that actually happens, I'm not certain, because we upload those as images, as graphics.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so whether the search engines are as clever as that, I'm not entirely certain. But I think that that's the kind of thing that we are going to see more of. Of course, I think keywords also need to be in the experience section for each job or each skill that you list. Then I think that your keywords need to be in there as well. And they can be listed. Nice bullet point list with emojis looks good, or just write them out, tell people what you're good at and the kind of things that people want to know about you. Often the problem people have is knowing what keywords to use. And I'm be interested to hear what you think about this, but I would imagine that looking at other people's profiles who are in similar roles might be a useful exercise for trying to find appropriate keywords. Would you have any other suggestions around that?
Well, in our career transitioning modules, and when we talk about LinkedIn, one of the most foundational modules I encourage any of our participants going through our program to look at is in fact the one on keywords. And the analogy that I use is almost like drawing out a mind map. So if, for example, the central term is, for example, training and development manager, this is the example that I use in our modules, then as a wheel, or the central hub of that mind map or that wheel is training and development, then I suggest any of the spokes that come off that have different words. So just to brainstorm that out loud would be learning and development, instructional design, it would be learning management systems, content development, and anything that you can come up with around the prior skills that you have. I might share something with you as well here, and that is that I just thought, look, what I'll do is I'll have a look at what the 7 most popular search engines are, because it often is very helpful to look at certain words. We always think of Google, but you can see here that what we have is we have a whole lot of other ways of working out what these particular search terms are. This is actually a pretty low tech, but it's a very good guide for people to be able to see through main search engines how certain keywords come up. Now, I'm not saying that these are definitive, but they are ways of being able to actually help expand the thinking that one actually has in adding to those spokes to the central hub of the wheel. So that was a pretty good article. The title of that article was meet the 7 most popular search engines in the world. And so search engineering, just going through that and typing in your training and development or learning and development or instructional design, in that example, would be very helpful. But I have found that in terms of the long tail, you may not think, for example, if you're again, using the example of training and development, that instructional design, for example, or technical writing, for example, may be something that you may find helpful, but you never know from when an employer that has the recruiter package or a recruitment firm that has the recruitment package, if they type in technical writing, had you not had that, you wouldn't have actually ranked in terms of their searches themselves. So that's how I would actually certainly be instructing anybody going through our programs to be looking at those particular keywords. So it's as a general principle, whether you're in IT, in human resources, in sales, or otherwise, it's very helpful to have that central idea with a whole lot of ideas, spokes and brainstorms.
I think that's a really good way to do that, Greg. And I think too that we need to remember that LinkedIn is a good search engine as well. And it's particularly tied to recruitment or job titles or words, services, that kind of thing. And I think that looking for that on LinkedIn or your different terms on LinkedIn would be helpful in terms of searches as well. But I don't think the search functionality is nearly as good on LinkedIn as it is on some other platforms. I see Facebook was on that list, and of course that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Well, I hadn't scrolled down all the way to the bottom of that list, but I will actually say that knowing how advanced LinkedIn or the increasing features, it wouldn't surprise me if in a year's time or so that it's going to be a real key. It already is providing and yielding some of those answers, but I'm sure it's going to get sharper and sharper the more people.
I think so too, particularly with Microsoft putting more and more emphasis on it, or putting more resources towards it. And there's nearly 800 million people on LinkedIn now. So the last 2 years have seen a massive uptake in LinkedIn. And not only, I think, from people who want to use it for marketing, for people who want to use it for jobs, but people who also want to reach out and to network, because of course a lot of us have been stuck at home for a long time, and being able to network with people on LinkedIn and get to expand our networks through LinkedIn is another part of the platform that I think we tend to neglect, really, and we tend to forget that there are a lot of opportunities that come our way, like our discussion today, are based on the fact that we have built a relationship with other people that we both mutually know. Then we got to know each other, and here we are having this conversation today. And that kind of collaboration and opportunity comes about by getting to know people and spending time on the platform in whatever way that might happen to be. It might be engaging on people's content, it might be inviting people to connect and starting a conversation, it might be any other number of ways of doing it. But I do think that there are a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn that are wider than most people actually currently think about it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And the important thing about LinkedIn too, and there are some pluses and minuses with LinkedIn. The pluses are that, frankly, here's this 24/7 profile. Well, you don't know when you're getting checked out. And it's now got such currency that you're expected to have checked somebody out. Now, I am going to say to you, I did meet somebody recently who was prospecting me for a service and hadn't checked out what my profile is.
Oh, bad move.
Bad move. I'm not sure if I should say this, but they were actually from LinkedIn. And I was thinking, oh my God, how did you do that? Any case, but look, no names there. But the thing is that this has got such currency today that you'd expect people to be checking out your profile beforehand. And I also am finding that people are increasingly turned off by, and again, I'm going to be maybe a little incorrect here, but LinkedIn is replacing a lot of the outreach where people have been turned off by Facebook. And it seems to me as if there's more increasing currency of people connecting in this particular way, not just for business, although I think there's a pushback on having too much social interaction on LinkedIn. because it's a business platform itself.
One of
Go
the
on.
trends I am seeing, Greg, is a little more of the personal. And that's evidenced by the fact that when you write a personal post, not about what you had for breakfast, but a personal post involving your opinion or something that's important to you or what you've learned, those kind of posts do extremely well. And so I think there is a move towards that. And so I think either regrettably or not, depending on your point of view, we will see more of that.
Well, interesting that you say that, and that is, I'll share with the audience, and you can look that up on my LinkedIn profile. But in May of 2021, I had a health scare, and in fact, I had a 95% blockage of the main artery that fed my heart, and I had a near-death experience, unbeknownst to me. In any case, I'm all great now, but when I was in hospital, I posted a call out, a call to action, just a call out to be diligent with your health. The last I've looked at that post, it had 25,901 views. And if I was able to actually make an impact to 10% of that particular group, then a lot of cardiologists have got very improved pools and newer boats. But in all seriousness, it was a call to action. That's it. There we go. But the lesson really is that it was something that was, and I guess in hindsight, it was an appropriately structured call to action of something of a personal nature, as opposed to, look what I've had for breakfast type of situation itself. Let me ask you, just pivoting to something, and that is to do with pivoting or to do with portfolio. When I coach people nowadays, people are basically saying, don't know if I really want to become an employee anymore with one dedicated organization. What I want to do is I want to either have a few, let's call that a portfolio, or I want to be able to actually pivot. In the remaining time that we've got, can I ask you if we can just go through some tips about portfolio? Because typically what happens in LinkedIn is you've got experience that says, in these years I was working here, in those years I was working there. What about, given the context of services, what are your recommendations around people who now want to get a portfolio? And also those that pivot, it may not be that that prior experience is all that relevant. What's your view? What's your take on that, please?
All right. Well, I think firstly, it's a matter of definition. I think the word experience no longer just means jobs on LinkedIn. It used to be, and that you're exactly right, people did a chronological order of their previous employment. Now, though, people are seeing that section as a more general term in terms of experience, and making it mean more about the kind of areas that they are skilled at and the kind of work that they have done, not necessarily who it was for. So when I'm doing these kind of profiles for my clients, we break up their experience in a different way. So we don't put in just necessarily jobs. So if they've got skills in various areas, so say, for example, they do a number of different things. They might do mentoring, coaching, training, consulting, and or say if it's just those four things, it could well be more. We'll say public presentations or speeches, is to actually put a section on each of those. Instead of a job, put it as a section under that skill. So could be coaching, and then you've got 2,500 characters that you can write about that particular skill, where you might have used it, what kind of work you've done with that, who you've helped, how you deliver that particular service. And you've also got then an opportunity to add media. So that could be links to websites, videos, images, that kind of thing. So if you do that and you have 4 of those different sections at the top of your experience section, and you might mention the different companies that you've worked for using those skills, then that tells people who are looking for someone with your particular skills or experience that those are the things that you do. So I see it as in a completely different way than just putting up your jobs. I see it as a complete pivot, if you like, to talking about what you can do and how you can help people. You do still, Greg, have to then decide which is going to be your most important one. You still have to order it by your skills. So it might be consulting is the one that you want to have mostly at the top. So then you would move that to the top. The question I have around this that everybody asks is, but yes, well, how do I do that when you have to put in the name of a company? And my answer to that is that LinkedIn provides I was going to say a company page, but it's kind of not really. It's more just like a logo that sits on the area. If you type in the words various companies into that section where it says employer, then what it brings up is a logo that sits on the left-hand side that doesn't mean anything, but it means it's not the default LinkedIn blank logo. And then you can just use that to group all your services together. Alternatively, you can put it under your own name, your own consultancy name, or your own business name, or whatever it is that you might want to have. It could be joeblogs.com, and then put everything listed together and grouped together under that one kind of heading, if you like. And that works really, really well. I'm finding that people like that. It attracts people to a profile, and it makes it very clear the different skills or services that someone provides.
And what comes to mind, Linnea, is that there's a possible implication of reshaping one's LinkedIn. So do recommendations that have been attached, let's just say, for example, I've had a recommendation where I've helped somebody in their career transitioning, and they were a client of mine when I was here, and I chose no longer to actually use, for argument's sake, Career 365, but just as general experience. Would I lose that recommendation if I, okay,
No.
I wouldn't, okay, so it doesn't put that recommendation to risk at all.
No,
okay,
which is great, isn't it?
It is good. Okay, so that's very encouraging, because there definitely is an increasing move towards having the gig economy. And, you know, it's now what, middle of November, I've been writing a number of articles around the so-called Great Resignation, which is being predicted, whether it's going to apply to your country, New Zealand, or mine in Australia. I'm not sure, time will tell. But it's certainly, they're saying it's a phenomenon applying to North America and so on and so forth. And the upshot is that people are going to either pivot or get a portfolio or work less, have a work-life balance aspect that comes out of COVID. So it's going to be increasingly different looking LinkedIn profile side of things. Interesting. Okay, there were a couple of other questions, which was to do with side gigging. And I'm curious about that, because some people are going to be employed in one area and then maybe side gig. I'm interested in that, but also had another question, which was to do with, if you do happen to have a chronological experience, how do you make it, how do you, for example, if you've got two things happening at the one time, this is the portfolio thing, how do you make sure that the one that you've most recently put up doesn't necessarily dominate, because it may be just something that's at an early stage of scaling, and that relates to the side gig side of things. Is it possible at the moment with LinkedIn not to do that?
How those things display, Greg, is based on the dates. So the dates really determine the order. But if you've got them grouped, say you've got them grouped under one company, say various companies, and then you've got different skills, because that's all grouped under one company, you can change those relatively easily using the icon that's the three horizontal lines on the right-hand side in the experience section. You can move things up and down within that. I think that the critical thing for people who are employed and are wanting to develop a side gig or their own business, this is a public document. Anybody can go to their profile. So you need to tell your employer that you are doing something else, because any kind of conflict with what you're currently doing, then your employer is going to have conniptions, and you don't want to be fired from your job or suddenly made redundant because they see that you are doing something else. And so that is really quite a tricky thing to be able to deal with. So my advice on that is always be upfront. Tell people what you're doing, what you're planning, what you might want to do, so that it doesn't come as any surprise. So if you're the managing director of your company looks at your profile and goes, hang on a minute, this person is doing something on the side that is in conflict to what we are doing. I want them on my in my office now. You don't have that kind of a problem. And I think that employers are generally, and you'll know more about this than me, but I think that employers are generally moving away from the the standard model that we are all used to of work. And work is changing to a much more flexible model. And employers are going to be inclined less to have great big huge staff, big staff numbers who are only employed there, and they will move to this kind of model that you've been talking about, of people having portfolios and being employed when they're needed on a contract basis perhaps, or project basis, that kind of thing. And I think we'll see a lot more of that in the great reshuffle or the great resignation, because work has changed forever thanks to COVID for all of us, and I don't think that it'll ever go back to that way again. I'm not saying we're going to see this change overnight, but I do think that it's a trend that is coming, and people are working in different ways. And as employees, we want to work in different ways. We want to be able to do our own work as well as do something where we've got an income coming in, whether that means we do it part-time while we're building up our business, or whether we just do it in the weekends as something extra. We are going to see a lot more of that, I think, in 2022 and onwards.
I'd say that's exactly the case. And what I have seen is certainly a letter of engagement contract for employment happens to actually be about disclosure of something of a conflict of interest. So Lanier, you've made a very good point about that. I quite like the idea that you actually said conniptions, and I was just thinking about, you want less conniptions, more connections.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So on in terms of connections, I must say I'm delighted that we have connected through LinkedIn. We've had a series of these types of interactions. I always enjoy my time when we catch up with each other. I think what we should do is we should agree that we'll do yet another one soon with each other. So thanks for agreeing that we do this together. I think it was it's fabulous. If anybody wants to connect with Lanier's got her details. I guess the same thing, if you want to find more about career transitioning and what I can offer, you'll also find out my details as well. And I just want to say thanks so much. Let's agree that what we'll do is we'll do this again with the next updates, Lanier.
That sounds fabulous. And I just want to say, Greg, thanks so much for having this discussion today. I always enjoy talking with you and learn something every time we do. So thank you so much.
Ditto, and a real pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Start Strong, Finish Strong podcast. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share the podcast with your teams, and of course, we'd love you to leave a comment or review.